The sun hung lazily over Abuja's open-air market that Saturday afternoon. Hawkers shouted from every corner, trying to outsell each other. The smell of roasted corn, fresh pepper, and diesel fumes filled the air. Women in colourful wrappers moved between stalls, their baskets balanced perfectly on their heads. Among them was Binta, a 28-year-old woman with soft brown skin and eyes that always seemed full of peace. She smiled politely as she picked fresh tomatoes and peppers, haggling quietly with the sellers. Her husband, Adi, always liked his food well seasoned. "He's a good man," she often said with pride. "He takes care of me." To everyone who knew them, Ade and Binta were the picture of happiness. Ade was tall, well-dressed, and soft-spoken. He owned a small electronics shop in Garki and always wore a gold wristwatch that gleamed under the sun. He never shouted at his wife in public. He gave her money when she asked. People admired them, but beneath that calm, something dark hid. That day in the market, Binta was paying for yams when she felt someone staring at her. Slowly she turned and froze. A mad man stood a few feet away. His hair was rough and tangled, his clothes dirty and torn. He held a broken tin plate and muttered strange words under his breath. People nearby laughed and threw coins at him, but his eyes were fixed on her. "Hey, madman, go away," a trader shouted. The man didn't move. Instead, he took a slow step toward Binta, then another. Binta's heart began to race. She stepped back, clutching her handbag tightly. The market women started whispering. "Ah, why is he following her like that?" one murmured. Then, before anyone could react, the madman stopped right beside Binta. His breath smelled of dust and smoke. His voice was low, almost calm. "Binta, I am Lola, Ada's first wife." The words struck her like thunder. "What?" she gasped, stepping backward so fast she almost tripped over a basket of onions. "What are you saying?" The madman leaned closer, eyes glistening with tears beneath the dirt. "Don't scream," she whispered urgently. "Please, don't. If you shout, they will hear, and if they hear, I won't be able to save you." Binta's lips trembled. She looked around. People were watching, but none could hear clearly. Who are you?" she whispered. "I told you," the woman said, voice trembling but clear. "I'm Lola, Ade's first wife. He killed me." The world spun around Binta. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of a table to steady herself. You're dead," she stammered. "You can't be. Listen to me." The mad woman cut her off, clutching Binta's wrist with surprising strength. "He's not what you think. He's part of a group. They call themselves the Cross. They sacrifice every year for wealth. You were next." Binta's eyes filled with tears. No, Aid can't." "You must believe me," the woman whispered fiercely. "He used me for his first oath. He plans to use you for his second, tomorrow night." "Tomorrow?" Binta's voice broke. "How do you know all this?" The mad woman smiled weakly. "Because I was there when he made the vow, and now I can't rest." She pointed a shaking finger toward Binta. "If you want to live, check behind the old clay pot in his bedroom, the one he told you never to touch. Inside it, you'll find his secrets. Break it, and you'll be free." Before Binta could respond, two men shouted from a distance, "Mad woman, come here!" The woman flinched. "They must not see me talking to you," she whispered quickly. "Remember the clay pot. Break it before midnight." And just like that, she darted into the crowd, disappearing between stalls. Binta stood frozen, trembling from head to toe. Her heart pounded so hard it echoed in her ears. For a long moment, she couldn't move. The traders around her laughed nervously. "Ah, that mad woman don't see fine woman talk rubbish again," one said. "Maybe na hunger day worry am," another added, but Binta couldn't laugh. She couldn't even breathe properly. That night, as she prepared dinner, the woman's voice kept echoing in her head. "Break the clay pot, and you'll be free." She tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe the woman truly was mad. After all, Aid was nothing but kind. When she met him 2 years ago, he had treated her like a queen. She remembered how he used to bring her gifts, perfumes, clothes, jewelry. He had even knelt down to propose at an eatery in front of everyone. Could a man like that truly be a ritualist? Still, when she entered their bedroom that night, her eyes fell on the old clay pot sitting quietly in the corner. Aid had told her never to touch it. "It's my late father's pot," he once said, "a family relic." Her stomach twisted. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, then stopped. Just then, Aid's voice came from behind her. "What are you doing, my love?" Binta jumped. "Ah, nothing. I was just cleaning." Aid smiled gently, but his eyes seemed sharper tonight. "Be careful around that pot," he said softly. "It's fragile." He kissed her forehead and walked into the bathroom. But Binta's heart wouldn't stop pounding. When Aid finally went to sleep, she lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. The market scene replayed in her mind over and over. The mad woman's trembling hands, her sad eyes, her warning. And then, something strange happened. At midnight, as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, Binta heard a faint whisper in her ear. "Now." She sat up sharply, her eyes darting to the clay pot. The house was silent. Aid was fast asleep. Slowly she got out of bed, her bare feet brushing the cold tiles. She tiptoed to the corner and knelt before the pot. It looked harmless, just a small brown relic with white lines carved around its base. Her hands shook as she reached for it. "God, please," she murmured. She lifted the pot gently, and her heart nearly stopped. Beneath it was a blood-stained white cloth wrapped around a small wooden doll. The doll had a red string around its neck and something that looked like her photograph pinned to its chest. Binta's breath caught. Her mouth went dry. She wanted to scream. But just as she opened her mouth, she heard Aid mumble in his sleep. "Tomorrow. Binta." The blood must flow. Her knees went weak. She clamped her hand over her mouth to stop the sound. Tears rolled down her face. Now she knew. The mad woman wasn't lying. Her husband was a ritualist. She stared at the pot, trembling. The voice whispering again in her head. "Break it before midnight." Binta took a deep breath. She grabbed the pot, raised it high. And at that exact moment, Aid's eyes snapped open. "What are you doing?" he roared, sitting upright in bed. Binta froze mid-motion, pot in hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. The silence that followed was terrifying. Binta's hands trembled as she held the clay pot in mid-air. Aid's voice, sharp and angry, cut through the silence like a blade. "I said, what are you doing?" His eyes were bloodshot, wild, and filled with something she had never seen before. Not love, not care, but fear. I was just cleaning," Binta stammered, lowering the pot slowly. "It fell. I was going to put it back." Aid climbed out of bed, his movements too fast, too tense. "At midnight? You were cleaning at midnight?" He laughed, a short, cold, nervous laugh that made her heart drop. Binta shook her head quickly, hiding the pot behind her leg. No. I couldn't sleep. Aid moved closer. Each step echoed across the tiled floor. "Did anyone talk to you today?" Her heart stopped. "What?" "I said," Aid repeated, his tone deadly calm. "Did anyone talk to you today in the market?" Binta swallowed hard. "Just traders. Nobody else." He studied her face. For a moment it seemed like he could see straight into her mind. Then he suddenly smiled. "Good. You know, Abuja markets are full of crazy people these days." I don't want anyone putting nonsense into your head. He walked back to bed and sat down. Go to sleep, my love. Tomorrow will be a busy day. Binta nodded quickly and placed the pot gently back on the ground, but her palms were wet with sweat. Her heart refused to calm down. She didn't close her eyes that night, not once. By morning, Aid was gone before she woke up. The bed beside her was cold, his perfume fading from the air. On the dressing table was a small note that read, "Gone for business. Don't wait up. Aid." Binta sat up slowly, her heart still pounding from the night before. The moment he left, she ran straight to the corner and lifted the pot again. The doll and the cloth were still there, but this time she noticed something else. A black envelope tucked under the doll. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside were several photographs, pictures of her husband and 5 other men, all dressed in red cloaks, standing around a bonfire. In the middle of the fire was something that looked like a human shape wrapped in white cloth. She gasped, dropping the photos. The name The Cross was written at the top of one picture in red ink. Binta stumbled backward, her heart beating so fast it hurt. "Oh God, it's true," she whispered. "It's all true." Then her eyes caught another paper, an invitation letter. It read, "Annual renewal, 18 p.m. Sunday night. Offering Binta Aid. Venue, the Hollow Lodge." Her blood turned cold. She couldn't breathe. Her name, her own name, was written as the offering. At that moment, the voice from yesterday echoed in her memory. "He plans to use you for his second oath, tomorrow night." That was tonight. Binta fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "God, please help me," she whispered. "Please." She grabbed her phone and tried to call her mother in Jos, but the line didn't connect. Network failed, again and again. Finally, she threw the phone aside and began to pack her things quietly. But as she stuffed her wrapper and jewelry into a small bag, she froze at the sound of a knock on the door. Knock. Knock, knock. Her heart almost stopped. "Binta," came Aid's voice, calm, too calm. "Open the door, my love. I forgot my car keys." She looked at the wall clock. It was barely 9 a.m. He said he wouldn't be back until night. Something wasn't right. She stayed silent. "Binta?" His voice was firmer now. "Are you there?" Still, she didn't answer. Her breathing was shallow. Slowly, she crept toward the window and peeped through the curtain. Outside, she saw Aid standing beside his black SUV. He was smiling, but his eyes were cold, and behind him were 3 men in black shirts. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. "Binta, open the door," Aid called again, knocking harder. "Why are you locking me out of my own house?" Binta whispered a prayer, stepped back and tiptoed toward the back door. She grabbed her slippers and slipped out quietly, heart hammering in her chest. As she ran down the narrow backyard, she could still hear him shouting from the front, "Binta, if you go anywhere, I swear—" She didn't wait to hear the rest. She ran. The streets were quiet. The morning sun was hot and merciless. Binta's chest burned as she hurried toward the market. She didn't know why, but she felt drawn there, like it was the only place that could help her. When she got to the market, the traders were setting up their stalls. She looked around desperately, searching for the madwoman. "Please," she begged one woman, "have you seen a madwoman here? The one that talks to herself?" The trader frowned. "Madwoman. We no see her today, oh, that one way they shout sometimes for corner." "Yes, that one," Binta said breathless. The trader shook her head. "Nobody don see 'em since morning." Binta's heart sank. She sat on a low stool, tears forming in her eyes. Then suddenly a soft voice came from behind her. "You came." Binta spun around, and there she was. The mad woman, standing quietly in the shade, her dirty wrapper tied tightly around her chest, her eyes calm and knowing. Binta ran to her. You were right. Everything you said was true. I saw it. The pictures, the doll, my name. The woman nodded slowly. I told you. He's not who you think. What do I do now? Binta begged, voice trembling. He came back early. He brought men. I think they're looking for me. The mad woman looked up at the sun and closed her eyes. He has started his final preparation. That's why the spirits are restless. What do you mean? She pointed toward a small shrine at the edge of the market. Go home. Before sunset, break the clay pot. Once it shatters, his power will be broken. But you must not be afraid. He will fight you. But fear is what feeds him. Binta swallowed hard. What if he sees me? The mad woman looked at her gently. He will. But he won't touch you. Not if you believe. Binta stared at her, unsure whether she was mad or holy. Who are you really? The woman smiled faintly, eyes glistening. I told you. I am Lola, and I never truly left. Before Binta could ask anything else, a voice shouted from afar, There she is! Binta turned and saw two of Adi's men running toward her. Run! The mad woman shouted. Binta didn't think twice. She took off through the crowded market, knocking over baskets and shouting apologies. The men chased her, shouting, Stop! Madam Binta, wait! But she didn't stop. She ran until her legs ached, until she reached the edge of the town. When she finally looked back, the men were gone. Her heart pounded as she hid behind a broken wall, catching her breath. Then she looked up and saw something that made her blood run cold. Ade's black SUV was parked not far away. He was standing beside it, holding his phone, scanning the road. Binta ducked quickly, praying he hadn't seen her. But then she heard it, his voice, calm and dangerous. Search everywhere. She must not reach the house before sunset. Her heart stopped. As Binta pressed herself against the wall, shaking and sweating, she realized the truth. The battle wasn't just about survival anymore. It was spiritual. And if she didn't destroy that pot before sunset, she would die before dawn. The sky turned dark earlier than usual that evening. Heavy clouds gathered, hiding the sun behind their thick grey folds. The air in Abuja grew heavy, like the city itself could sense something dreadful coming. Binta crouched behind a half-fallen fence near the bush path that led back to her neighborhood. Her heart was still pounding from the chase. Her hands were scraped, and dust clung to her wrapper, but none of that mattered. The mad woman's voice kept echoing in her head. Break the clay pot before sunset, or you will die before dawn. She glanced at the horizon. The sun was already dipping low. God, please give me strength, she whispered. She wiped her tears, stood up, and began to walk back home, careful, silent, alert. When she reached her street, she stopped. Her husband's black SUV was gone. The compound was quiet, the gate slightly open. Her breath quickened. Maybe he's not home, she thought. Binta slipped through the gate, her heart racing. She pushed open the front door gently. The living room lights were off. Only the faint evening glow filtered through the curtains. Everything was still, too still. She tiptoed past the sofa and moved toward the bedroom. Her feet made no sound on the tiles. Every step felt like walking toward fate. When she entered the room, her eyes immediately darted to the corner. There it was, the clay pot, still sitting where she had left it. She took a deep breath, clutching the edge of the table for balance. Lola, she whispered softly, if you're truly here, help me. The room stayed silent, but a gentle breeze brushed against her skin, though the windows were closed. She took that as a sign. Binta grabbed the pot with both hands. It was heavier than before, as if something alive sat inside it. Her hands trembled, but she lifted it anyway. As she raised it above her head, thunder rolled outside. And then, A voice behind her. "Don't you dare." Binta froze. The pot nearly slipped from her hands. She turned slowly. Aid was standing by the doorway. He looked calm, too calm, dressed in a spotless white kaftan, gold chain glittering on his neck, his eyes cold as ice. Behind him stood two of his men, both wearing black. How did you—" she began. He smiled faintly. "You didn't think I'd let you go that easily, did you?" Her heart pounded. "Aid, please let me go. I know everything. I saw the pictures. I know about the cross." The smile faded from his face. For a second his mask dropped, and what appeared underneath terrified her. His eyes widened, his lips twitched, his face filled with hate. "So," he said quietly, "the mad woman talked." "She's not mad," Binta shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "She's Lola. She told me everything. You killed her." Aid's expression darkened. "Lola was weak," he said coldly. "She wanted to run from destiny, and destiny always takes what it's owed." He stepped closer, voice calm but deadly. "You, Binta, were supposed to continue her purpose. You're the chosen one. Your blood will renew everything we built." Binta shook her head, crying. "You're a monster." "No," he said softly, "I'm a survivor." He raised his hand slightly. The two men behind him began to move forward. "Get the pot," Aid ordered, carefully. Binta screamed and stepped back. "Don't come near me." But they kept advancing. One man reached out, and at that exact moment, thunder cracked outside so loudly that the whole house shook. The lights flickered. Then, from somewhere unseen, a faint woman's voice whispered, "Now, Binta." Binta didn't think twice. With every ounce of courage left in her, she screamed, lifted the pot high above her head, and smashed it to the ground. The sound was deafening. The clay shattered into hundreds of pieces, scattering across the floor. A cloud of black smoke burst out from the fragments, spinning wildly around the room like a small tornado. Aid screamed. He clutched his head, falling to his knees. His men shouted in confusion, stumbling backward as the smoke surrounded them. "What have you done?" Aid cried, his voice cracking. The room filled with a stench of burning herbs and blood. The air grew cold, the walls trembled. Then, through the smoke, Binta saw her, Lola, her face calm and glowing faintly in blue light. She stood behind Aid, eyes filled with sadness. "You took my peace," Lola whispered. "Now your own will be taken." Aid turned, eyes wide in horror. "Lola!" "No." Before he could finish, he screamed again and began to thrash on the floor. His gold chain burned against his neck as if it were fire. His eyes rolled upward. His body shook violently. Binta backed away, terrified. The two men fled out the door, shouting, "Boss, boss!" But Aid was no longer himself. His voice changed, deeper, broken, desperate. He crawled on the floor, grabbing Binta's leg. "Help me," he cried. "Please, don't let her take me." Binta yanked her leg free, shaking. "You killed her, Aid. You killed her." "I didn't mean to. They made me do it. The cross made me." He screamed again, this time louder, echoing through the house. His body stiffened, then went limp. When he looked up, his eyes had turned completely white. And then, as suddenly as it started, everything went quiet. The lights steadied. The smoke began to fade. The broken pot pieces glowed faintly, then went dark. Binta sank to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. She looked at her husband, now motionless on the ground, mumbling to himself. He was no longer angry, no longer powerful, just a broken man whispering nonsense. He had gone mad. Minutes later, neighbors gathered outside, drawn by the screams. They found Binta sitting on the floor, covered in tears and dust, while Aid crawled in circles, laughing and crying at the same time. "What happened?" one man shouted. "Call the police," Another yelled. But when Binta finally spoke, her voice was calm, eerily calm. "He's been judged," she said softly. "God has judged him." The police came. The neighbors searched the house. In a hidden corner, they found what looked like charms, red candles, small bones, and a box filled with photographs of missing people. The whispers spread through the street like wildfire. Aid the ritualist. He used his wife. She broke the charm that bound him. By nightfall, everyone knew. Aid was taken away, still muttering the same words over and over. "The cross will come. The cross will come." Binta watched silently as the car drove away, sirens echoing into the night. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. But deep inside, she also knew it wasn't over. Because when she closed her eyes that night, she saw Lola again, smiling sadly. And behind her, 5 shadowy figures standing in a circle, holding red candles. The rest of the cross was still out there, and they knew her name. The night after Ad's madness felt long and cold. Abuja, usually full of distant car horns and street chatter, was unusually quiet. Binta sat in her living room with a single candle flickering on the table. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her spirit was strangely calm. She could still hear Ade's voice from earlier that day, echoing through her mind. "The cross will come. The cross will come." Those words had refused to leave her head. She had repeated them again and again, each time feeling the weight of them grow heavier. Outside, the rain began to fall softly. The faint sound of thunder rolled far away. By morning, neighbors came in to console her. The story had spread through the entire area, how Binta's husband, Aid, had been exposed as a ritualist, and how his madness came immediately after she broke the pot. Everyone called it God's judgment. The police came again to question her, but after searching the house, they found enough proof of Aid's crimes to close their doubts. Human hair, bones, photos, charms, all of it hidden in secret drawers. The inspector, a tall man with calm eyes, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are lucky to be alive, madam," he said. "Many women like you never get the chance to escape." Binta nodded silently. Her heart was too heavy to speak. After they left, she packed her things into a small bag. She needed to go home, back to Jos where her parents lived. But before she could step out of the door, her phone buzzed. A message, unknown number. She opened it slowly. "You broke the bond. Now we must renew it." The cross. Her blood ran cold. She dropped the phone, trembling. "No, no, no." She ran to the door and locked it immediately. Then she went to the window and looked outside. Everything seemed normal, children playing, people sweeping their compounds. But her heart told her something was wrong. That night, she couldn't sleep. She left all the lights on, clutching her Bible and whispering prayers. Every small sound made her flinch. At midnight, the lights flickered. Then she heard it, a faint knock on the gate. Knock, knock, knock. She froze. Her candle trembled in her hand. Knock. Knock. "Who's there?" she shouted with a shaky voice. Silence. Then a man's voice, deep, familiar. "Madam Binta, we are from the police. Please open." She frowned. Police? At midnight? Something didn't feel right. She walked to the window and peeped out. There were 2 men by the gate wearing dark coats. She couldn't see their faces clearly, but one of them held a torch that flickered strangely, almost like a red flame, not a normal light. Her heart raced. "That's not police light," she whispered. "Madam Binta," the man called again, this time louder. "We came for your safety." Her instinct screamed no. Without answering, she turned off the light and crawled away from the window. Her breath came out fast and shallow. The knocking grew louder. Then suddenly the man's voice changed, deeper, colder. "Open the gate, Binta, or we will enter." Her heart stopped. That wasn't a police voice anymore. It was filled with something unnatural, something ancient and angry. She backed away slowly, whispering, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." Then she heard it, a faint hiss. The lock on the gate snapped open by itself. The door handle rattled violently. "Come out." "Binta," another voice hissed. "The cross demands balance." Binta screamed and ran into her bedroom. She grabbed the small bottle of anointing oil and splashed it on the door. "The blood of Jesus," she cried. "Leave me alone." There was a deep growl from the other side, not human, not animal, something in between. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. The candle beside her flickered weakly. Then a faint whisper behind her. "Don't be afraid." She turned sharply and gasped. Standing near the wall was Lola. The same faint blue light surrounded her. Her eyes were calm, her face full of sadness and strength. "They can't touch you tonight," Lola said softly, "but they will come again." "Why won't they stop?" Binta cried. "I broke the pot. He's gone mad." "What more do they want from me?" Lola looked down. "The cross feeds on oaths. Aid made promises on your name. The others want to finish what he started. But you can end it completely. Only you." Binta wiped her tears. "How?" "Go to the place where they made the vow," Lola said. "The Hollow Lodge. Burn the altar before sunrise." Binta shook her head in fear. "That place?" "But they will be there," Lola nodded. "Yes, but you won't be alone." A loud bang on the door interrupted them. The handle turned violently. Lola's glow began to fade. "They found me," she whispered urgently. "Binta, run at dawn. Don't stop until you reach the lodge. You will see a river. Follow it. There you will find truth." "Wait," Binta cried. "Don't leave me." But it was too late. The light vanished. The door burst open with a deafening crash. The men in dark coats stormed in, faces covered with red scarves, eyes burning like coals. Binta screamed and threw the candle at them. It exploded into sparks, briefly lighting their faces. All of them bore the same symbol, carved into their foreheads, a blood-red cross. "Take her," one of them shouted. Binta kicked, screamed, and ran toward the back door, but one grabbed her wrist. She bit his arm fiercely, tasting blood, and broke free. She dashed outside barefoot into the rain. Thunder cracked again, the sky flashing white as she ran down the muddy path, heart pounding like a drum. Behind her, voices shouted, "Catch her! She must not reach the river!" She didn't look back. She ran until her lungs burned, until her wrapper was soaked and her feet bled. And just when she thought she couldn't take another step, she saw it, the faint shimmer of water through the trees. The river. She stumbled forward, collapsing beside it, gasping for air. The rain poured harder, washing away the blood on her knees. When she looked up, she saw something that froze her completely. On the other side of the river, faintly glowing in the rain, stood Lola, pointing toward a small hill behind her. And there, through the mist, Binta saw it. An old stone building, half hidden by vines and fog. The Hollow Lodge. Her heart clenched in both fear and determination. She wiped her tears, picked up a fallen stick for support, and whispered, "Enough running. Tonight it ends." The rain had slowed to a steady drizzle by the time Binta reached the edge of the river. Her legs trembled from exhaustion, her heart heavy with fear and determination. Across the narrow wooden bridge ahead, she could see the shadow of the old building, the Hollow Lodge, rising from the mist like something out of a nightmare. It was dark and cold, its cracked walls covered in moss. Faint candlelight flickered through a broken window. She could hear voices, low, chanting, rhythmic. The cross binds, the cross renews, the cross takes what is owed. Binta swallowed hard. She tightened her wrapper and gripped the small bottle of anointing oil she had brought with her. "God," she whispered, "if you are truly with me, please let tonight be the end." She stepped onto the bridge. Each plank creaked under her feet. The wind howled softly through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled again. When she reached the other side, the chanting grew louder. She crept closer, hiding behind a tree, and peered inside through a crack in the wall. There they were, the cross. 5 men in dark robes stood in a circle around a red-stained altar. At the center of the altar burned a strange blue flame. On the ground before them lay a calabash filled with blood and a white cloth. Binta's stomach turned. Her picture was on the cloth. Her knees weakened, but she steadied herself. She knew what she had to do. She waited until one of the men left the circle to pour something into a metal bowl, then quietly slipped inside through a side door. The air was thick with incense and smoke. She could hear the steady beat of a drum. She moved silently, her feet barely making a sound. The altar was only a few meters away now. She could see an old book lying beside it, black, with strange symbols on the cover. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a box of matches and whispered, "Lola, help me." Just then, one of the men turned around. His eyes widened. "Binta," he shouted, "she's here." The others spun around immediately, their chanting stopping. "Catch her!" Binta didn't run. She dashed straight for the altar, grabbed the black book, and poured the anointing oil over it. The men screamed, "No, don't you dare!" But before they could reach her, she struck a match and threw it. Whoosh! The flames exploded upward, blue turning to gold, then to white. The fire spread fast, eating through the cloth, the book, the altar. The entire circle of men stumbled backward, shouting as the fire surrounded them. Binta fell to her knees, shielding her face from the heat. The light grew brighter until it filled the whole room. Then she heard a soft voice, familiar, gentle, full of peace. "Thank you, Binta." She looked up and saw Lola standing in the heart of the fire. Her once-torn clothes were now white and glowing. She smiled, a calm, warm smile. "You have freed us," Lola said. "The oath is broken. The bloodline is cleansed." Binta's eyes filled with tears. "Will they stop coming?" Lola nodded. "They no longer have power. You will live." Then she looked toward the burning altar, where the 5 men screamed, their symbols glowing red. Their end has come. The fire rose higher, swallowing the lodge in flames. The chanting turned into cries, then silence. When the light faded, Binta found herself lying outside, rain falling softly on her face. The building behind her burned silently, collapsing in on itself. Lola was gone. By morning, people from the nearby village came running, shocked to see the old lodge on fire. They helped Binta up, their faces full of questions. "Are you all right, madam?" one asked. She nodded weakly. "Yes, I'm fine now." She looked back one last time at the smoldering ruins. Somewhere deep inside, she felt peace, real peace. The voices were gone. The fear was gone. It was over. Weeks later, Binta sat in her parents' compound in Jos. Her mother brought her food, smiling. "My daughter, you look better now," she said. "You are finally glowing again." Binta smiled softly. "Yes, Mama, I'm healing." In the evening, she walked to the backyard and stood under the mango tree. The sun was setting, bathing the sky in orange and gold. She closed her eyes, breathing in the peace she had fought for. A gentle breeze brushed her face. For a moment, she thought she heard a faint whisper. "Live well, Binta. And remember, kindness frees even the forgotten." She smiled, eyes wet with quiet gratitude. "Rest in peace, Lola," she whispered. Then she turned and walked back inside, ready to start her new life, free from fear, free from darkness, and full of hope. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.